very good afternoon to you from the studios of Atlantic Television Network in Port Harcourt. This is ATN International News. First, let's take a look at the headlines. School blaze kills 17 students, 14 others injured in Kenya. Burkina Faso launches new passports without West African logo. U.S. calls for renewing security mission mandates in Haiti. Deadly super typhoon Yagi makes landfall in China. Former Taiwanese presidential candidate Ko Wen-je sent back to jail. India's top wrestler joins opposition Congress party. These and many more stories to come your way in a moment. Please do stay with us. In details, we begin with Africa. Fire at a primary boarding school in central Kenya has killed 17 students and 14 others injured, a police spokeswoman said on Friday. President William Ruto said he had asked authorities to investigate and hold those responsible to account. More rescuers were on their way to the hillside and the Rasha Academy in Nyeri. The spokeswoman, Resila Onyango, said in a broadcast on Kenya's radio, adding that authorities would provide details later. Authorities have cordoned off the school, Kenya Red Cross said on X. There have been a series of school fires in Kenya in recent years, many of them which have turned out to be arson. 9 students were killed in September 2017 in a fire at a school in the capital, Nairobi, that the government attributed to arson. In 2001, 58 schoolboys were killed in a dormitory fire at Kianguli Secondary School outside Nairobi. In 2012, 8 students were killed at a school in Homa Bay County in Western Kenya. Burkina Faso has launched new biometric passports without the logo of West Africa's main political and economic bloc on the cover, further signaling its determination to withdraw from the regional alliance after military leaders took power in a coup. Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, three neighboring states now led by military juntas, jointly announced in January they would leave the 15-member Economic Community of West African States, which has since sought to persuade the three to reconsider their decision. The move comes after Burkina Faso, along with Niger and Mali, cut ties with ECOWAS following military coup in the three countries. The decision to issue passports without the ECOWAS insignia was announced by Burkina Faso Security Minister Mahamadou Sana on Tuesday. Although the organization only issued a suspension, it has demanded that the countries return to constitutional order before sanctions are lifted. However, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have all denounced any plans to reintegrate, accusing ECOWAS of betraying the Pan-African ideals for which it was founded. Despite its departure, Burkina Faso's passport remains relatively strong, ranked 78th globally and providing visa-free access to 60 destinations, including current ECOWAS member countries, according to the Henley Passport Index. ECOWAS has raised concerns that the withdrawal of these nations could undermine the free movement of people and goods within its borders, impacting the bloc's 400 million citizens. President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria, who currently chairs ECOWAS, has been actively trying to persuade the three countries to reconsider their exit, emphasizing that the organization remains open to maintain friendly relations. Democratic Republic of Congo received its first batch of monkeypox vaccines on Thursday, which health authorities hope will help curb an outbreak that has prompted the UN to declare a global public health emergency. Congo is the epicenter of the outbreak, which has spread to neighboring countries and elsewhere. But a lack of vaccines in Africa has hampered efforts to stop the spread of the sometimes deadly disease. A plane carrying doses manufactured by Bavarian Nordic and donated by the European Union touched down in the capital Kinshasa around 1 p.m. local time, according to reports. Congo's Health Minister Samuel Roga Mulamba told reporters that the newly arrived vaccine had already proved its worth in the United States and would be rolled out to adults in Congo. The first delivery amounts to 99,000 doses, and a further delivery on Saturday will take the total to 200,000 doses. Laurent Michel, the head of the EU Health Emergency Preparedness and Response Authority, said. Europe plans to deliver 566,000 doses of the Mpox vaccine to Africa, with Burundi potentially next. The vaccine aims to address the inequity in The vaccines aims to address the inequity in Africa, where African countries lack access to the two shots used in a 2022 global outbreak. Congo plans to launch its vaccination campaign on October 8 to overcome mistrust. Mpox causes flu-like symptoms and can kill. There were 19,710 suspected cases of Mpox reported in Congo in the first 8 months of this year, according to the Health Ministry. Of those, 5,041 were confirmed and 655 were fatal. It spreads through close contact, including sexual contact. Tunisian president candidate Ayachi Zamel has been released from police custody on Friday, shortly after he was set free from a previous detention, then rearrested over alleged election-related irregularities. The state news agency reported. Zamel is one of 3 candidates approved by Tunisia's Electoral Commission to run in a presidential election in October 6, which opposition critics say it's rigged in favor of President Kais Saied. He was arrested on Monday on suspicion of falsifying voters' forms. A judge ordered his release on Thursday, but 2 lawyers for Zamel, Abdesattar Masoudi and Dalila Ben Mbarek, said he was arrested again immediately after his release from Baj El Amri prison. On On Friday, he was released again on judge's orders, state news agency reported. His case was postponed on 19th. Zamel campaign member Mahdi Abdul Jawad has described his arrest as a kidnapping. He is accused of falsifying voter forms for next month's election, which each candidate is required to submit forms from 10,000 supporters to qualify to stand. However, he denies the allegation. Zamel has said he faces restrictions and intimidation because he is a serious competitor to Said. He has pledged to rebuild democracy, guarantee freedoms, and fix Tunisia's collapsing economy. Tunisian President Said, elected in 2019, has been accused of a coup and arbitrary restrictions threatening the democratic gains of Tunisia's 2011 revolution. Opposition parties and human rights groups accused authorities of ensuring his re-election. Both sides in Sudan's civil war have committed abuses on a large scale which may amount to war crimes or crimes against humanity. A United Nations mandated mission said on Friday, recommending an arms embargo and a peacekeeping force to protect civilians. The 19-page report by a UN fact-finding mission based on 182 interviews with survivors, the family members and witnesses said that both the Sudanese army and paramilitary rapid support forces were responsible for attacks on civilians and had used torture and carried out arbitrary arrests. The mission's chair, Mohamed Chande Othman, said the gravity of these findings underscores the urgent and immediate action to protect civilians, calling for an independent and impartial force to be deployed without delay. The report is the three-member mission's first since its creation in October 2023 by the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. Civilians in Sudan are facing worse famine, mass displacement, and disease after 17 months of war between the army and the RSF paramilitary. US-led mediators said last month that they had secured guarantees from both parties at talks in Switzerland to improve access for humanitarian aid, but that the Sudanese army's absence from the discussions had hindered progress. Displaced people in a tent at a school turned into a shelter in Port Harcourt. The World Bank and French Development Agency have given Uganda more than 600 million to fund infrastructure development and manage waste in capital Kampala. The government and World Bank said on Thursday. Ugandans have complained about waste management and the poor state of the roads in Kampala, which suffers chronic underfunding from the central government. Last month, a garbage landslide at the landfill site in Kampala's outskirts buried houses as residents slept, killing at least 35 people. A total of $566 million worth in funding, much of its credits will come from the World Bank, and $4.7 million will be provided by French Development Agency, the statement said. Rapid urban expansion has exposed significant gaps in infrastructure, the World Bank said. Last year, the World Bank, after the East African country passed a harsh anti-gay law. In an emailed response to reporters' query, the World Bank said the ban was still in effect, but that the latest credit extended to Uganda was approved before the ban. Venezuela opposition leader Maria Corina Machado said on Thursday she wants the United States to do much more to press President Nicolas Maduro amid an ongoing dispute over July's presidential election. Critics worldwide have criticized Venezuela's handling of the July 28th vote, which was claimed to be won by Maduro. Opposition polls show a victory for coalition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez. The U.S. has drafted sanctions and visa bans for around 60 Venezuelan officials and their family members. U.S. officials identify potential targets for Venezuela's electoral council, judges, lawmakers, and security and intelligence commanders. The timing of these measures remains unclear. Venezuelan officials and its oil industry are already subject to sanctions by the U.S. and the EU. Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez has expressed his belief that the U.S. should take more action against human rights violations. Venezuela's President Hugo Machado has urged international investors and creditors to support a swift transition to a new regime. Venezuela owes creditors between $60 billion and $150 billion. European companies, including Chevron and Repsol, have also been granted U.S. authorization to expand with state oil company PDVSA. The Maduro government blames opposition for protests, deaths, and repression. Brazil and Colombia expressed concern over an arrest warrant for opposition leader Juan Manuel Gonzalez, who has been accused of supporting the regime. The Venezuelan Attorney General Tariq Saab has convicted former presidential candidate Hugo Gonzalez of crimes he has no responsibility for, according to his lawyer Jose Vicente Haro. Gonzalez, who has not attended 3 summons to testify about the opposition's vote tally website, has been accused of violating no laws and denying his rights. The arrest comes amid concerns over the country's law requiring house arrest for these over 70. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Thursday called for renewing a United Nations mandate for an international security mission to help Haiti fight armed gangs that have taken over much of the country's capital and expanded to nearby regions. The mission's mandate, first approved for 12 months, is set to expire at the start of October, but has seen few results, with few troops on the ground and far less funding than hoped. U.S., the largest financial backer of the UN peacekeeping mission, plans to convene a ministerial meeting at the UN General Assembly to encourage more financial contributions and renew the mandate. The mission is currently led by Kenya, which has deployed around 400 police officers in Port-au-Prince. The UN is deploying 1,900 more troops and millions of dollars to support Haiti, despite facing setbacks like delayed payments and equipment supply. The mission is determined to continue, and Blinken urges Haitian authorities to prepare for elections next year. Blinken met with Haitian Prime Minister Gary Conille and the head of its Presidential Council, Edgar Leblanc, during his visit. He also announced a further $45 million in humanitarian aid for Haiti. Nearly 580,000 people have been internally displaced by the conflict. Hundreds of thousands who fled the country have been deported back to Haiti, and close to 5 million people are facing severe hunger. Joe Biden's son Hunter pleaded guilty in a tax evasion trial on Thursday without reaching the deal he had sought with prosecutors, in a case that has been an embarrassment for the U.S. president. The 54-year-old admitted 9 counts related to failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes over the past decade, money that prosecutors said he splurged in state and local sex workers, a drug habit. The pleas came on the day jury selection for a trial had been due to start, and hours after Hunter Biden had offered to plead guilty in the hope of striking a deal that might keep him out of prison. But no deal materialized, and Hunter made the pleas in open court. U.S. District Judge Max Casas set sentencing for December 16. Hunter faces up to 17 years in prison and a fine in excess of $1 million. A trial had been expected to rehash sordid details of a life that the defendants and his family, including the president, have long acknowledged had gone off the rails. Hunter's defense team has argued that the non-payment of taxes was an oversight in a life wrought chaotic by a spiraling drug addiction and the trauma of losing his older brother, Bill, to a brain tumor in 2015. Biden has paid the back taxes. Biden has paid back the taxes as well as penalties leveled by authorities, and had previously reached a that would have kept him out of jail. Hunter Biden's attempt to enter an Alford plea to admit guilt but maintain innocence has been rebuffed by prosecutors who are scrutinizing his actions during the election year. Hunter has been a foil for his father's political opponents who have sought to smear the Biden family as criminals. The elder Biden's withdrawal from the race has reduced Republican efforts to make an example of his son. Father of a 14-year-old boy accused of killing 4 people at a high school in the U.S. state of Georgia has been arrested and charged with murder. Colin Gray, 54 years old, is facing 4 charges of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of second-degree murder, and 8 of cruelty to children. Officials said on Thursday evening that the charges were directly connected to his son's actions and allowing him to possess a weapon. The son, Colt Gray, is accused of killing 2 teachers and 2 students in Wednesday's shooting at Appalachian High School in Winder, near Atlanta. He is due in court on Friday, charged as an adult with 4 counts of murder. In Georgia state, a law allows prosecutors to charge minors from age 13 as an adult in certain crimes. This means they face potentially more severe sentences if convicted. Authorities are investigating whether Colin Gray bought the AR-style weapon as a gift for his son in December 2023, law enforcement sources told newsmen. The charges against the father are thought to be the most severe leveled against the parent in this kind of case. In May 2023, the FBI reported online threats about a school shooting to local police. The boy was 13 at the time, claimed he had guns in his house, but did not have unsupervised access to them. The threats were made on Discord, a popular social media platform, and contained images of guns. The boy, who was 13 at the time, claimed he deleted his Discord account due to hacking. Police records revealed the boy's mother and father were in a divorce, and he's often hunted with his father. During the news conference on Thursday, Barrow County Sheriff Jude Smith said all 9 of those injured were expected to make a full recovery. Several victims had already left hospital, he said. 9 students and teachers were killed in a school shooting in Barrow County, with the suspects leaving an algebra lesson to return later. Witnesses heard gunshots and the suspect surrendered. The parents of the suspect have not been charged in a school shooting before, with the first case involving a Michigan teenager's parents who were found guilty of manslaughter and sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison. Donald Trump's lawyers are set to challenge a $5 million jury verdict that found him liable for sexually assaulting and defaming writer E. Jean Carroll. Trump is appealing the civil verdict stemming from a May 2023 encounter and a 2022 post claiming Carroll's claim was a hoax. Jurors awarded the former Elle magazine advice columnist a respective $2.02 million and $2.98 million for her sexual assault and defamation claims. A different jury ordered Trump in January to pay Carroll $83.3 million for having defamed her and damaging her reputation in June 2019 after the first accused him of rape. Trump denies knowing Carroll and claims she made up her story to promote her memoir. He is appealing the $83.3 million verdict in both trials, claiming Kaplan erred by admitting testimony from accusers Jessica Leeds and Natasha Stanoff. Trump also subjected to let a juror see a 2005 Access Hollywood video where he graphically described how famous people like himself could have sexual relations with beautiful women. He said Kaplan also wrongly excluded evidence that Carroll was politically motivated to sue and lied in a deposition regarding how a fellow Democrat, billionaire LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman, was funding her case. The first jury found Trump's denial of raping Carroll defamatory, leading to an $83.3 million verdict. Carroll's cases are separate from Trump's multiple criminal cases, with Trump yet to be sentenced in Manhattan. Kamala Harris' campaign and the Democratic Party raised $361 million in August, giving her a clear cash advantage over Republican rival Donald Trump, with 2 months left before Election Day, leaving her with $404 million in cash. The two candidates will spend more than $1 billion in this campaign, breaking records, according to regulatory filings. Trump and Harris are using the money to run advertisements and build get-out-the-vote operations in the closely contested states that will decide the election. The fundraising totals, which are reported to U.S. election regulators, are closely watched for signs of momentum ahead of the tightly contested November 5th election. The totals do not include the money raised by outside groups supporting each candidate. A key test for both candidates will come at their televised debate on Tuesday, the first since President Joe Biden dropped out of the race and endorsed Harris as his successor on July 21st. Harris' candidacy has re-energized Democrats and donors, and she has had a surge in opinion polls. No Harris campaign donors, mainly women, are in a tight race in battleground states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Georgia, with 75% not contributing in 2020's election. You're watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We'll be back after this short break. Please do stay with us. Have you back. It's good to have you back on the broadcast of the International News and Atlantic Television Network. We're open for adverts, placements, bookings, and commercials. And you can connect with us and watch us on ATN socials, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok Atlantic TV Network 1, X formerly Twitter Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website atlanticnetwork.tv. And now to the rest of our stories. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov asked if President Vladimir Putin's stated support for U.S. presidential candidate Kamala Harris was serious or a joke. Said people would have to figure it out for themselves. Putin said on Thursday that Russia wants Harris to win the November election in a teasing comment that cited her infectious laugh as a reason to prefer her over Donald Trump. Asia's strongest storm this year, Super Typhoon Yagi, made landfall along the coast of China's Hainan province on Friday, bringing gales and heavy rain which shut schools for a second day and cancelled flights in the South China Sea region. Packing maximum sustained winds of 234 kilometers per hour near its center. Yagi registers as the world's second most powerful tropical cyclone so far, after the Category 5 Atlantic Hurricane Beryl, and the most severe in the Pacific Basin in this year. After more than doubling in strength since killing 16 people in the northern Philippines earlier this week, Yagi slammed into the city of Wenchgang on Hainan Island. Typhoon Yagi has shut schools, businesses, and transport links in Hong Kong, Macau, Hainan, Guangdong, and Vietnam, as well as airports in Laos. Vietnam's Civil Aviation Authority closed 4 airports and a Hong Kong stock exchange and schools closed. Operations have returned to normal, with winds expected to weaken the world's longest sea crossing. The main bridge linking Hong Kong with Macau and Zhuhai in Guangdong reopened after being shut since on Thursday. Yagi, the most severe storm to land in Hainan since 2014, is expected to bring heavy rain bands and heavy squally showers. Yagi caused economic losses of over 44 billion yuan, that is $6.25 billion, and killed 88 people in the province. Typhoon Yagi, named after the Japanese word for goat and a constellation of Capricornus, has strengthened into a super typhoon in Hainan, causing widespread deserting and a lack of people to stay indoors. Typhoons are becoming stronger due to climate change. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is visiting South Korea to strengthen ties with the Asian rivals as he faces challenges in cooperation after his term ends. The 2-day trip was arranged after Kishida expressed hope for a meeting with South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol. Experts believe Kishida aims to leave a legacy of boosting Japan's security and diplomatic partnerships, but has faced low popularity due to political scandals. Japan and South Korea are key U.S. allies in Asia, hosting around 80,000 American troops. However, their ties have faced setbacks due to Japan's 1910-1945 colonial occupation of the Korean Peninsula. In March 2023, Yoon resolved compensation issues for Koreans forced to work for Japanese companies, but he avoided a direct apology for the colonization. Korea and Japan have resumed high-level talks and withdrawn economic retaliatory measures after a dispute over forced laborers. However, President Yoon's creation of a South Korean corporate fund for victims of forced labor without Japanese contributions sparked domestic backlash, with liberal rivals accusing him of being submissive to Tokyo. Yoon believes it's time to move beyond historical disputes and seek better ties with Japan due to shared challenges such as the U.S.-China strategic rivalry, North Korea's nuclear arsenal, and supply chain vulnerabilities. Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshimasa Hayashi said Kishida's trip would be an important opportunity for further bilateral cooperation. Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has visited South Korea to discuss his policies with South Korean President Yoon Se-yoon. The visit is expected to continue the momentum for improved ties between the two countries. South Korean media has been focusing on whether Kishida will issue comments to help Yoon deal with domestic criticism of his Japan policy. Kishida's decision not to seek another term has allowed the Liberal Democratic Party to choose a new standard bearer in its leadership election. Former Environment Minister Shinjiro Koizumi and former Defense Minister Shigeru Ishiba are leading candidates of the South Korean-Japan presidency. Koizumi has visited Tokyo's Yasukuni Shrine, honoring Japan's 2.5 million war dead. Choi deaths in Koizumi will continue visiting the shrine, while Ishiba's comments on Japanese military ambitions could complicate ties. South Korea-Japan relations could change if liberals win the presidency in 2027. Pope Francis arrived in Papua New Guinea on Friday for the second leg of his four-national trip through Southeast Asia and Oceania, becoming the second pope to visit the poor, strategically important South Pacific nation. A cannon salute and marching band greeted the 87-year-old Pope on the tarmac of the Port Moresby Airport as he arrived after a 6-hour flight from Jakarta, Indonesia. During the brief welcome ceremony, the Pope momentarily lost his balance while maneuvering from his wheelchair to a chair, but his security guards steadied him, according to report. The packed 3-day Indonesia visit culminated with a jubilant mass on Thursday afternoon before a crowd that filled two sports stadiums and overflowed into a parking lot. The Vatican had originally expected the mass would draw some 60,000 people, and Indonesian authorities had predicted 80,000, but the Vatican spokesman quoted local organizers as saying more than 100,000 attended. While in Indonesia, Francis sought to encourage the country's 8.9 million Catholics, who make up just 3% of the population of 275 million, while also seeking to boost interfaith ties with the country, boasting the world's largest Muslim population. In the highlights of the visit, Francis and the Grand Imam of Jakarta's Istiqlal Mosque, Southeast Asia's largest, signed a joint declaration pledging to work to end religiously inspired violence and protect the environment. In Papua New Guinea, Francis' agenda is aligned with more of his social justice priorities. The poor, strategically important South Pacific nation is home to more than 10 million people, most of whom are subsistence farmers. Papua New Guinea, a Commonwealth nation that was a colony of nearby Australia until independence in 1975, is the second leg of Francis' four-nation trip. In the longest and fastest voyage of his papacy, Francis will also visit East Timor and Singapore before returning to the Vatican on September 13. Former Taiwanese presidential candidate, who was mayor of the capital Taipei, has been returned to custody as part of a sprawling corruption investigation. Ko Wen-jae was returned to detention on Thursday night in handcuffs after a legal panel overruled an earlier order allowing him to return home. He is being held incommunicado, unable to speak to anyone outside the facility in which he is being held. ATN gathered that Ko's case involves alleged illegal favors and payments from a web of business, people and local level politicians brought to light by an urban redevelopment project that stood to bring investors massive profits by avoiding required reviews. He has the options of further appealing on Friday. Taiwan's democracy and independent legal system are not being affected by a case involving former Mayor Ko and others. Ko will lead the Taiwan People's Party, implicated in a scandal involving a shopping center developer's permission to expand floor space. Despite claims of involvement, Ko has denied any knowledge or involvement. The Taipei District Court ruled his detention necessary due to the amount of funds involved and potential cooperation. Taiwanese President Kuo finished third in the recent election, winning a quarter of the vote. Despite having no clear political platform, Kuo performed well among young people. Despite accusations of judicial persecution, President Lai has not commented on Kuo's case. Political corruption has declined, with independent investigators strengthening their power. India's top wrestler Vinesh Phogat has joined the opposition Congress party following heartbreak from the Paris Games. Phogat retired from the sport after failing the weigh-in. The decision comes days before Haryana Assembly elections. She expressed gratitude for the opportunity to serve her country and aims to help women. There was widespread speculation about the wrestlers joining the Congress after they met Congress leader Rahul Gandhi in Delhi on Wednesday. Political analysts say that the wrestlers' popularity among locals, especially farmers, who make up a majority of the population in Haryana, could work in the party's favor. The elections are set to be held on 5th of October and votes will be counted 3 days later. Phogat, a former Indian Railways officer on special duty, resigned due to personal reasons. She previously supported farmers' protests for guaranteed floor prices and government-controlled wholesale markets. Phogat also played a role in the wrestlers' protests against former Federation Chief Burj Bhushan Singh, accused of sexually harassing female wrestlers. Singh denies all allegations against him. The row between Indian wrestler Phogat and police led to international outrage. Phogat, who won millions hearts with her Olympic performance, was disqualified from her final bout for weighing above the 50 kilograms limit. Her arrest caused global outrage. India's female wrestler Aisha was disqualified from the Olympics after disputes with the Court of Arbitration for Sports, which dismissed her plea, causing disappointment among fans and causing her retirement. Police in Munich exchanged fire with a gunman near the Israeli consulate in Munich on Thursday, fatally wounding him. Authorities say they believed he was planning to attack the consulate on the anniversary of the attack on the 1972 Munich Olympics. A shootout occurred near the Israeli consulate in Munich, Germany, shortly after 9 a.m., where an 18-year-old Austrian man was killed. The incident occurred near a museum on the city's Nazi-era history. Police deployed around 500 officers to the area, and the suspect, who left a car near the scene, was still being investigated. Bavaria's top security official, Joachim Herrmann, believes the attack was planned. Prosecutors and police said in a statement later on Thursday that they currently believe the plan was for a terrorist attack, also with respect to the consulate of the State of Israel, and that they are still investigating the man's motive. Thursday was the 52nd anniversary of the attack by Palestinian militants on the Israeli delegations at the 1972 Munich Olympics, which ended with the death of 11 Israeli team members, a West German police officer, and 5 of the assailants. Munich police have confirmed no further suspects in connection to the Munich shooting. An Austrian with Bosnian roots was suspected of involvement in a terror organization and religious radicalization. An investigation was closed in April 2023, but a ban on his owning weapons was issued until early 2028. Israel's foreign ministry said the consulate was closed due to a memorial ceremony and all employees were unharmed. Israeli President Isaac Herzog expressed condemnation in horror at the shooting, while Germany's Jewish organization Joseph Schuster thanked the police for their swift Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has pressed for more weapons support during a meeting on Friday with top United States military leaders and more than 50 partner nations in Germany, as Washington announced it would provide another $250 million in security assistance to Kyiv. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with Ukrainian leaders at Ramstein to discuss Ukraine's fight against Russia. Zelensky emphasized the need for the U.S. and West to allow him to use weapons provided to strike deeper inside Russia, which the U.S. has not supported due to concerns it would escalate the war. Zelensky emphasized the need for long-range capability on both Ukrainian and Russian territory to motivate Russia to seek peace. Russia's recent airstrikes, particularly around Pokrovsk, have prompted President Zelensky for increased Western capability to strike deeper inside Russia. Austin cautioned that the U.S. needs to loosen restrictions and obtain more advanced systems. The meeting on Friday was expected to focus on resourcing more air defense and artillery supplies and shoring up gains and expanding Ukraine's own defense industrial base to put it on more solid footing as the final days of Joe Biden's presidency wind down. ATN gathered that Western partner nations are working with Ukraine to source a substitute missile for its Soviet-era S-30 air defense system. The U.S. is also resourcing various air-to-ground missiles, including the Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff missile, which could give Ukraine a longer-range cruise missile option. Policymakers would still have to decide whether to give Ukraine the longer-range capability. The Ukraine Defense Contacts Group has met to resource Ukraine's artillery and air defense needs, with the U.S. providing over $56 billion of that total since 2022. Italy's president said there was an inescapable need to bring down the country's mammoth public debt, but warned on Friday that markets' perception was a questionable indicator of the financial reliability of a nation. Speaking via a video link at the Teha Economic Forum in Cannobio, President Sergio Mattarella said that the cost of servicing Rome's debt was far higher than neighbors due to interest rates. Italy's public debt, the second largest in the Eurozone, as a proportion of output, is under close scrutiny by rating agencies and currently seen by the Treasury rising to nearly 140% of GDP through 2026. Mattarella told the forum that Italy's debt amounted to nearly 2.9 trillion euros in 2023. And Rome paid slightly less in interest than Germany and France together. Italy, along with France and other countries under the EU's excessive deficit procedure, will have to submit draft budgetary plans to the European Commission to cut deficit and debt levels, which markets are closely watching. The procedure obliges Italy to cut its structural budget deficit, net of one-off factors and business cycle fluctuations, by 0.5% or 0.6% of GDP per year. Sources told newsmen last week that in its medium-term structural budget plan to be presented this month, the government of Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni will stick to a commitment to bring its deficit to GDP ratio below the EU's 30% ceiling in 2026. Founder of the Telegram messaging app, Pavel Durov, under investigation in France, said earlier on Friday that French authorities should have approached his company with their complaints rather than detaining him. Durov, writing on his Telegram channel in his first public comment since his detention last month, denied any suggestion the app was an anarchic paradise. He said the investigation into the app was surprising in that French authorities had access to a hotline he had helped set up, and they could have contacted Telegram's EU representative at any time. Using laws from the pre-smartphone era to charge a CEO with crimes committed by third parties on the platform he manages is a misguided approach. Telegram, he said, was not, but he denied any abuse associated with the app. But the claims in some media that Telegram is some sort of anarchic paradise are absolutely untrue, he wrote. We take down millions of harmful posts and channels every day. Durov, born in Russia but now a French national, was detained late last month in France amid an investigation into crimes related to child pornography during trafficking and fraudulent transactions associated with the app. And that's it on the international news for today. Before we go, another look at the major stars. We told you that school blaze kills 17 students, 14 others injured in Kenya. And then Burkina Faso launches new passports without West African logo. U.S. calls for renewing security mission mandate in Haiti. We also told you that Biden's son, Hunter, pleads guilty to tax evasion charges. Typhoon Yagi makes landfall in China. Former Taiwanese presidential candidate Ko Wen-je sent back to jail. India's top prime minister joins party congress. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. And you can follow us on our social media platforms. X, formerly Twitter, at Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram, Network. Watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Business news comes up next. Please do stay with us.